All right, here we go, students. Our topic, once again, we're still in the second time period, our second unit, reorganization of human societies, 600 BCE to 600 CE. Our essential question, how did the Western empires affect the rest of the world? So last time we talked about Greece, let's talk about Rome. Rome in Italy was at a crossroads between Europe and the Middle East, as well as North Africa. Trade between Italy and the rest of the Mediterranean made it very powerful. So Italy began to grow as well as Rome. Roman social structure was split between the patricians, the landowning nobles, and the plebeians, all other free men and slaves. So there was this split between society, and that's this political split determined how people were classified during this time. The government was made up of a senate, patricians with the voting rights, an assembly, which were some plebeians, obviously slaves didn't have very many rights. In the Roman democracy, citizens voted for representatives who cast their vote, and this is very similar to the United States today. This was different than the Greeks, where everyone voted, and that was how the votes were cast. Here they are voting for representatives who then cast their votes. In the beginning of the Roman Empire, the 12 Tablets of Rome were created, were a set of civil rights laws that applied throughout the Roman Empire. Now, the Roman military domination. So obviously, if you're going to have a giant empire, you've got to have a pretty good military. The Punic Wars from 264 BCE to 146 BCE was against Carthage, which was just across on the coast of North Africa. Carthage also set up numerous colonies, was very imperialistic, and the Roman Empire and Carthage were butting heads. In the First Punic Wars, so the Punic Wars were Carthage and the Roman Empire fighting. The First Punic War, Hannibal of Carthage marched elephants and an army over the Alps and almost took over Rome. Hannibal was a military genius. And in coming from the north, the Romans were completely caught by surprise. He almost took over all of Rome. The only thing that kind of saved him is that the Romans were over in Carthage, burning Carthage to the ground. So, of course, Hannibal went back to try to fight for his homeland, but he was right on the outskirts of Rome and ready to for the downfall of Rome. Eventually, over the years, the Romans were able to defeat the Carthaginians and burn their capital to the ground, and then that wasn't enough. They had to put salt in the earth, so they couldn't grow any crops. Romans were able to defeat the Greeks to the east, the Gauls to the north, the Spaniards to the west. To maintain such a vast empire, the Romans built roads, aqueducts, and greatly increased their infrastructure. So the Romans, to be able to march an army from one end of the empire to the next, you had to have a very good infrastructure and be able to control with the military your surroundings. Now, the collapse of a republic and the rise of imperialism. Rome became unsettled around 100 BCE. So remember, the Roman Empire started around 500 or 400 BCE. By 100 BCE, it started to become unsettled. Small farmers displaced. They moved to the city, which caused overcrowding. High rate of inflation causing plebeian unrest. The Senate was weakened, and then began a transfer of power. So we're going from a republic where people were voting to an empire. The first triumvirate was formed by Pompey, Crassus, and Julius Caesar, and this is when three rulers are all holding power. Unfortunately, oftentimes they start fighting, and then it just comes down to one person holding power, such as Caesar. Caesar took over, but was killed by angry senators who assassinated him in 44 BCE. The second triumph was Octavius, Mark Antony, and Lepidus. Octavius gained power and rose as a single emperor and called himself Augustus Caesar. Thus the republic ended and the empire had been established. And when the empire was established, then there was one ruler, The Senate didn't rule anymore. It was more like a dictatorship, and the emperor won. He was the ruler. This time period was known as Pax Roma. So a period of around 200 years of Roman peace with stability, common laws, coins, safe travel. So you'd think, oh, with the Senate or with people voting and having more rights, that was like the golden age of the Roman Empire, but it was actually during this time when the military was really strong and you had one ruler that, you know, whatever he said was the law. The Roman Empire grew to its largest size during this time period. Arts flourished. There was quite a bit of literature written during this time. And there was also religious diversity. So we're talking about religious diversity. Roman gods were worshipped during the Pax Roma, the beginning of it. But a new religion, Christianity, as most of us know, began to affect the Roman Empire. So during this time period in the Roman Empire, if something didn't involve the politics of the Roman Empire, the Romans usually just let it be. But if there was something that was affecting the Roman politics, then the Romans would go in there with their swords and start chopping. So, if a religion did not interfere with the politics of Rome, it was okay. But both Judaism and Christianity were persecuted during this time. Both of these religions were seen in a negative way at some points during this Pax Roma, or the 200 years, 300 years after the empire was created. So we're talking about the 1st, the 2nd, and the 3rd century. Emperor Constantine issued the Edict of Milan in 313 CE, which led Christianity being the first official religion to the Roman Empire. And we'll talk a little bit more in our last boards for this set about the fall of the Roman Empire and the fall of the other empires around the world at this time. But just know that Constantine issued this edict, and that made Christianity the #1 religion for the Roman Empire, which then would have profound effects on Christianity to be able to last and the Roman Empire. Remember, history is no mystery. Take good notes.